Welcome back, everyone, to the Wisdom of Lao Tzu.
Great to be back. Today we are opening up Chapter 32 of the Daodejing. And this feels like quite a shift, doesn't it? We're moving from the dark wisdom of the battlefield in Chapter 31.
Into the very foundations of human civilization itself. It's a big jump.
It really is. I mean, Chapter 31 left us with that incredibly stark image. A wise leader, even after winning a necessary war, doesn't celebrate.
No, they observe the rites of a funeral. It was such a powerful statement about, about maintaining our humanity, our reverence for life, even in those awful no other choice situations.
Exactly. Holding on to that moral bottom line, that sort of small lamp in the darkness, as you put it.
Yeah, a lamp amidst the smoke. But that chapter focused on how to act within those situations.
And now, Chapter 32 seems to pull the camera way back. We're looking up from that battlefield and asking a much bigger, more fundamental question.
Which is?
Well, why do we keep ending up there? Why does human society again and again create these situations of no other choice? Why this recurring pattern of solving problems with, well, violence and discord?
It's a deeply troubling question when you look at history, isn't it? I mean, you think about our earliest ancestors. Simpler tribes, maybe local conflicts, sure, but not on the scale we see later.
Right. Limited scale, simpler forms. But then something changes. And we start building cities, creating titles, writing laws, dividing people into ranks.
The very moment Lao Tzu pinpoints as the beginning of institutions and names.
And that's where the paradox kicks in, right? We create all these systems, laws, ranks, bureaucracies, explicitly to bring order and harmony.
That's the stated goal, yes. Order, fairness, stability.
Yet somehow the more complex and sophisticated these systems become, the more detailed our classifications get.
The more the world seems to fill up with conflict, resentment, friction, and ultimately war. It feels completely backwards.
You mentioned the Roman Empire as a classic example. It built this incredibly complex legal and administrative machine.
Unprecedented for its time. The Pax Romana brought a kind of order, no doubt. But how was it maintained?
Constant expansion, constant military conquest abroad.
And pretty brutal suppression at home to maintain those political categories, those names: Caesar, senator, plebeian, slave. The system itself required violence.
So the very complexity that created the Pax Romana also contained the seeds of its own destruction, rebellion, internal strife.
Exactly. It sowed conflict just by existing in that form.
And fast forward to today, we've got the UN, international law, global trade networks, an unbelievably complex global order.
More complex than ever before in history.
Yet, conflict hasn't exactly vanished, has it? Cold wars, regional wars, trade wars, ideological battles.
We just seem to find new arenas for the same fundamental problems.
Which brings us right back to Lao Tzu's core question here in Chapter 32. Is there something inherently dangerous in the very act of creating systems and names?
Does naming things, classifying things, dividing things up, ruler, subject, reward, punishment, does that itself plant the seeds of discord rather than lasting peace?
It's a radical thought. And Lao Tzu doesn't just pose the question, he offers an answer, packed into this incredibly dense chapter.
Which Western scholars have called a perfect micro-universe, and it really feels like that.
How so?
Well, in just a handful of lines, he weaves together metaphysics, the nature of reality, with political philosophy, how society should be run, and practical ethics, how you should live your life.
It's like a complete system in miniature.
Exactly. He starts at the very beginning with this primordial state of potential.
The uncarved block.
Right. PA, this raw, infinite potential. And from that metaphysical foundation, he derives his ideal political model.
Where the myriad creatures will submit of their own accord. That phrase is key, isn't it?
Absolutely central. Order through natural attraction, through virtue, not through force or coercion. It's a magnetic pull.
But crucially, Lao Tzu isn't just a utopian dreamer floating in the clouds.
Not at all. He immediately grounds it. He pivots right back to our world, the world where the block is cut, where there are names, rules, complexity.
The world we actually live in.
Yes. And for this world, he gives us the essential safety mechanism, the brake pedal.
Knowing when to stop one can be free from danger.
Arguably one of the most critical pieces of advice in the entire Daodejing. It's the braking system for the whole runaway train of civilization.
So today, we're going to unpack all of this. We're bringing together insights from across centuries.
From the classical commentators like Wang Bi, the sharper critiques from Zen masters like Daodejing, the ethical focus of Tzu Chi, even the sort of subversive challenges from Wang Fuzi.
Alongside modern perspectives from scholars like Hu Perong and Chen Guiang. It's a real roundtable.
Let's start where Lao Tzu starts, with the text itself. For everyone listening, here's chapter 32.
The way is forever nameless. Though the uncarved block is small, no one in the world dare claim its allegiance. Should lords and princes be able to hold fast to it, the myriad creatures will submit of their own accord. Heaven and earth will unite and sweet dew will fall, and the people will be equitable, though no one so decrees. Only when it is cut are there names. As soon as there are names, one ought to know that it is time to stop. Knowing when to stop, one can be free from danger. The ways to the world as the river and the sea are to rivulets and streams.
Now, if we were to paraphrase that, put it into sort of simpler, more actionable language,
Go ahead.
it's basically saying the Tao, the fundamental way, is eternal and doesn't have a fixed name. It exists in this natural, simple state, the uncarved block. It seems subtle, maybe even small, but nothing can control or own it.
Okay.
If a leader aligns with this simple, natural way, everything will naturally be drawn to them. You get harmony, like gentle rain, nourishing everyone fairly without needing commands.
The sweet dew.
Metaphorically, yes. But once society starts creating names, ranks, definitions, that's when the danger starts. People must learn to recognize limits. Knowing when to stop is the key to avoiding chaos and danger. Because ultimately, all these specific named things, all the streams and rivulets, naturally flow back to their source, the Tao, which is like the great river and sea. That's their ultimate destination.
That opening line is immediately challenging, though. The way is forever nameless. Though the uncarved block is small, no one in the world dare claim its allegiance. It throws us straight into the deep end of metaphysics.
It really does. It defines the Tao not by what it is in positive terms, but by its state. Nameless, uncarved. And it hits us with that core paradox. It seems small, yet it's utterly unconquerable.
Let's talk about pen, the uncarved block. You said it's like raw timber.
Exactly. Think of a log, just as it is, from the forest. It has infinite potential. It could become anything: a beam, a door, a sculpture, firewood.
But the moment you name it, say, this is going to be a table.
You've limited it. It's no longer the block with infinite possibilities. It's now just a potential table. Naming constrains potential. That's why the Tao, in its ultimate form, must be nameless.
Okay, that makes sense. But why can't it be claimed? Wang Bi, the great 3rd century commentator, had a specific reason, didn't he? Something about non-being.
Yes, he said it's because the block is close to non-being, Wu. Now that sounds weird to us. Non-being sounds like nothingness, emptiness, useless.
How can something close to nothing be powerful?
Because Wang Bi's point is that anything named, anything with a defined quality like wisdom, strength, skill, can be used. It has a specific function, so someone can harness it, control it, claim allegiance from it.
You can make a wise person your advisor, a strong person your guard.
Exactly. Their function is defined, so they can be employed. But the uncarved block, it has no single defined function yet. It's undifferentiated. It's the source of all possible functions, like the raw clay before the potter shapes it.
Ah, so you can't conquer the raw clay itself. You can only conquer the specific pot or bowl after it's been shaped and named.
Precisely. Its power lies in its infinite, undefined potential. You can't master potential itself, only its specific manifestations.
That connects really well to what Professor Fu Perong highlights with that Latin quote.
Omnis determinatio est negatio.
Every determination is a negation, or to define is to limit.
It's the perfect philosophical echo. Defining that log as a table negates its potential to be a chair or anything else. The block's supreme value is precisely in that state of holding all possibilities before any choice is made.
It's like the blank canvas before the first stroke of paint. Or maybe, like you suggested, the source code.
Yeah, the source code analogy works well, I think. The Finish app is limited, defined, it does specific things. But the underlying code, the fundamental programming language itself, that's where the real unlimited power lies. It's subtle, invisible almost, but it governs everything.
And Yuki reminds us not to just think about this politically or physically, but aesthetically too.
Right. Lao Tzu values the qualities of being nameless and uncarved. There's a beauty and integrity and infinite vitality in that original undefined state, maybe like our authentic self, before the world starts sticking labels on us.
Okay, so the power of the nameless, uncarved potential is clear. But I'm still stuck on why it's called small. If it's the supreme unconquerable Tao, why small?
This is where Han King, the Ming Dynasty Zen master, comes in with a really sharp, almost sarcastic critique.
Okay.
He says it only seems small to us because our values are completely upside down. We live in a world that treasures names above all else.
We value the label more than the substance.
Exactly. He uses this brilliant analogy. Imagine a huge ancient log, the uncarved block. It's massive, full of potential, takes several people to wrap their arms around it. But because it's just timber, nameless potential, people walk right past
All
it.
right.
But then someone takes a tiny splinter from that same log, carves it into an intricate little ornament for, say, an official's hat. They give it a fancy name, jade belt clasp or whatever.
And suddenly everyone gathers around, admiring the tiny named object.
Precisely. We ignore the vast foundational reality, the Tao, the block, but we obsess over the tiny, specific, named fragment, status, titles, awards. So when Lao Tzu says, though small, Daodejing argues it's deliberate irony, a jab at us for being blind to true greatness. We mistake superficial specifics for fundamental importance.
That's quite a critique of human perception. And then Cheng offers a more modern, almost scientific take.
Yeah, he shifts the perspective. He compares the Tao not to a physical object, but to a fundamental law of nature, like gravity.
How does that explain the smallness?
Well, think about gravity. As a concept, as a law, it's subtle, invisible, intangible. You can write it as a relatively simple equation. In form, it's small.
But its effect is enormous.
Exactly. In function, it governs the entire cosmos, from apples falling to galaxies spinning. It's vast. So the Tao is small in its subtle, formless essence, but large in its all-encompassing function.
And you can't claim allegiance from gravity. You can't order it around.
No, you can only align yourself with it. Try to defy it, build a tower that ignores its principles, and the system corrects itself. You don't conquer the law, you just experience the consequences of ignoring it.
Okay, that clarifies the paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Small in form, supreme in function. Nameless potential, unconquerable reality. Deep stuff. Now let's move to the political consequence. What happens when a ruler does manage to grasp this, to hold fast to this uncarved block?
Lao Tzu gives us the ideal outcome. Should lords and princes be able to hold fast to it, the myriad creatures will submit of their own accord. This is the heart of Taoist political philosophy.
Order through attraction, not conquest. And that phrase, zibin, of their own accord, you said it literally means to come as a guest.
Yes, to come as a guest on one's own initiative, it strongly emphasizes voluntary action. People aren't forced, they aren't commanded, they are drawn in willingly by the leader's virtue, by the environment created. It's magnetism, not dictatorship.
It makes me think of your zookeeper versus nature preserve analogy.
Right. The ruler governing by force, by action, is the zookeeper. They use cages, names, categories, rules, punishments, maybe some rewards, bribes to manage the animals they've captured. It's all very controlled, very artificial.
But the sage ruler, operating by non-action, Wu Wei, is like the guardian of a nature preserve.
Exactly. They don't command the animals. They focus on creating the perfect environment. Clean water, abundant food, safety, balance. They uphold the natural order.
And the result?
The animals, the myriad creatures, come voluntarily of their own accord from all over because it's the best place to thrive. The guardian doesn't need to force them. The environment itself attracts them. That's governance by virtue, by aligning with the Tao.
And this submission isn't about being subservient or flattering the ruler. It's about recognizing a good situation.
Absolutely. Professor Fu Perong's story about President George H.W. Bush playing golf makes this point so well.
Remind us of that one.
While he was president, apparently his golf partners always played sort of carefully. They let him win. He thought he was a pretty good golfer.
Because they were submitting to the name president.
Exactly. But after he left office, suddenly he started losing all the time. He realized his friends were actually much better players. They had only submitted to the position, the name. Once the name was gone, that artificial submission vanished.
Whereas if people are drawn to your actual character, your virtue, the environment you create, the uncarved block of who you are, that attraction is real and doesn't depend on a title.
Precisely. That's the difference between coerced loyalty and genuine attraction.
But okay, this spontaneous order sounds great, maybe a bit idealistic. Liu Shaogan adds a necessary dose of realism, doesn't he? It's not just about freedom.
Right. He points out it requires two things from the people, the citizens. First, yes, you need individual autonomy and freedom. That's the foundation. People have to be free to choose to come. But second, and this is critical, it requires conscious self-restraint from those individuals. If everyone just pursues their own desires without limit, they'll inevitably destroy the very harmonious ecosystem that attracted them. Freedom comes with responsibility.
So it's not anarchy. It's a self-regulating system based on both freedom and restraint. A
They're
delicate
the very delicate balance. And when that balance is achieved, Lao Tzu describes the result poetically.
Heaven and earth will unite, and sweet dew will fall, and the people will be equitable, though no one so decrees. That sweet dew line. It's had different interpretations.
Oh, yes, a fascinating history there. Early commentators, like He Gong in the Han Dynasty, took it quite literally, almost theologically.
Meaning actual dew.
Yeah. They believed that if a king was truly virtuous, his virtue would resonate with the cosmos, and heaven would literally send down a special, sweet-tasting dew as a sign of approval, an auspicious omen, a direct reward.
Sort of magical cause and effect. Virtue causes magic dew.
Pretty much. But then, a few centuries later, during the Weijin period, Wang Bi comes along with his more rational philosophical approach.
What he says.
He basically demythologizes it. He argues Lao Tzu isn't talking about literal magic dew, he's using a metaphor.
How so?
The harmony of the cosmos, where rain falls naturally, nourishing everything without discrimination, is analogous to the harmony of a well-ordered society, where people are treated equitably without needing specific commands or laws forcing fairness upon them.
So cosmic harmony is like social harmony. They are parallel processes, both spontaneous and non-coerced, not cause and effect.
Exactly. Wang Bi pulls it away from superstition and anchors it in a philosophical comparison of natural processes.
And modern scholars, looking at the ethics of it, focus on that phrase, be equitable, Zijun.
Yes, people like Chen Guiying emphasize the deep spirit of equality here. The ideal distribution isn't one meticulously measured out by a ruler with a set of rules and scales.
Because that inevitably introduces biases and complexities.
Right. Instead, true equity arises naturally, like the sun shining on everyone or the rain falling everywhere. It's about achieving a state of natural equilibrium, not imposing an artificial hierarchical fairness.
It's a beautiful vision of spontaneous natural justice.
Yeah.
Lao Tzu, the ultimate realist, doesn't let us linger in that ideal world for long, does he?
No, the tone shifts dramatically. He snaps us right back to the reality of civilization as we know it.
He says, only when it is cut are there names. As soon as there are names, one ought to know that it is time to stop. Knowing when to stop, one can be free from danger.
And this is the absolute core tension of the chapter. The uncarved block, that state of pure potential, has to be cut to create a functional society. You need tools, roles, institutions.
You need names.
You need names. That's the beginning of order. But, and this is Lao Tzu's crucial insight, it is simultaneously the origin of danger. The moment you cut the block, you introduce risk.
What are these names exactly in a societal context?
They're everything. Titles, ranks, laws, rules, definitions, categories, identities, hierarchies, all the ways we structure and label reality to manage it.
And the danger is?
Ch.32 warned about this explicitly. He said, once there are names, names beget more names. It's like a bureaucratic hydra. You create one category and immediately you need subcategories and some subcategories.
Leading to endless complexity, bloated systems, red tape, a labyrinth of names.
Exactly, a self-replicating labyrinth.
But wait a minute, isn't this going too far? Don't we need names? I mean, how does society function without the name doctor to signify medical training or engineer for building bridges safely? Aren't some names essential for trust and competence?
That's the critical pushback, and it's important. Lao Tzu isn't saying no names ever. He's not an anarchist in that sense. He accepts that some cutting, some naming is necessary to begin.
So he's not anti-definition.
He's anti-excessive definition. He's arguing for minimalism. His core insight is that the utility of naming has diminishing returns and quickly crosses into negative territory. You need the basic names, maybe ruler, farmer, artisan, to establish basic function.
But after that?
After that, every additional layer of naming, every finer distinction, tends to create more division, more conflict, more opportunities for resentment and competition over the definitions themselves.
This sounds like Wang Bai's metaphor, the fight over the tip of an awl.
Perfect example. Once society gets fixated on the names, on the intricate details of status, rank, and definition, people forget the underlying reality, the whole Tao. They end up fighting bitterly over tiny, insignificant points of distinction, things as trivial as the point of an awl or the edge of a knife. The system gets choked by its own labels.
So faced with this inevitable danger that comes with civilization, with naming, Lao Tzu provides the antidote.
The safety valve, the essential wisdom, Z, knowing when to stop.
And this concept, knowing when to stop, isn't static. It's been interpreted and refined over centuries, hasn't it? Like building a better braking system over time.
A fantastic intellectual history there. We can see at least 4 major interpretations applying the break at different levels.
Let's walk through them. Where does it start?
Chronologically, we can start with Wang Bi again. He saw Zia primarily as a political break. It's a macro-level instruction for the ruler. The ruler has to institute some names, slice the cake to create basic rules and order, but immediately after doing so, they must consciously stop, halt the process, declare, okay, that's enough naming, enough slicing, before the distinctions become so fine that the whole thing crumbles into dust. It's about preventing bureaucratic overload and division at the state level.
Okay, so a top-down political limit. Then what happens in the Song dynasty with Suche?
Suche takes it inward. For him, zizing is about stopping the internal chase. Our minds, he says, are like restless monkeys, constantly chasing after external names, status, wealth, reputation, validation.
We're always seeking the next label, the next achievement.
Right, and Suche says knowing when to stop means consciously recognizing this exhausting case and bringing the monkey mind back to rest in the great tree of one's own heart. It's about finding contentment within, stopping the endless pursuit of external validation tied to names. It becomes a psychological break.
A shift from state policy to individual psychology. And then Daodejing, the Zen master, takes it even further.
He pushes the inward turn to its absolute limit. For him, ZA becomes the path to ultimate liberation. It's not just about resting the mind, it's about a complete reversal of values.
How so?
He calls it the Zen break. It's about realizing deep down that everything you truly need is already within you, in the uncarved block of your own essential nature. Once you fully grasp this internal self-sufficiency, the desire to chase external names simply ceases. The engine of seeking shuts off entirely. You stop because you realize the chase itself was based on a false premise.
So political break, psychological break, liberation break. What's the fourth?
We can look at a modern interpretation from someone like Zhang Jing, which offers a more concrete, almost minimalist guideline.
The minimalist break.
Right. He suggests interpreting stop in a very practical sense. Stop the pursuit of external things once your basic survival needs are met. Food, clothing, shelter for the body.
Anything beyond that.
Anything pursued beyond genuine necessity, purely for the sake of acquiring a name, luxury goods, excessive status symbols, hoarding wealth is inherently dangerous, according to this view. It's a call for material simplicity as the way to stop.
4 distinct levels of applying the break.
Yep.
But then, Wang Fuzi throws a wrench in the works, doesn't he, in the Qing dynasty?
He poses a brilliant subversive challenge. He looks at the fundamental nature of the Tao, which Taoism itself describes as constant change, flow, ceaseless creation, and transformation.
Like a river always flowing.
Exactly. And Wang Fuzi asks, if the universe is fundamentally about constant change, is stopping actually possible, philosophically possible? Can a river truly stop flowing?
That's a major challenge. If the Tao is flow, how can stopping be aligned with the Tao? It seems contradictory.
It suggests that Zaki knowing when to stop might not mean a dead halt, a complete cessation of activity. Perhaps it's not about stopping change itself, which is impossible.
But maybe stopping our reaction to it, or
No.
stopping the excess.
Precisely. Maybe it's about a dynamic vigilance, a sense of proportion, knowing the appropriate limit within the flow. Not damming the river, but knowing when to stop taking water out of it. It's maintaining balance amidst change, not trying to freeze reality. It's vigilance, awareness, proportion, not paralysis.
A dynamic break, not a parked car.
Yeah.
That makes more sense within a philosophy of flow. Okay, so after prescribing this complex braking system for the dangers of naming, Lao Tzu ends the chapter with that beautiful, calming image.
Yes. The way is to the world as the river and the sea are to rivulets and streams.
It brings it all back together. All the complexity, all the specific names and streams ultimately find their way back to the simple, unifying Tao, the sea. It reassures us about the ultimate destination.
And the commentators highlight different aspects of this metaphor. Wang Bai focuses on the how. Why do the rivers flow to the sea? Not because the sea command of them.
But because
the sea is humble. It occupies the lowest ground. Water naturally flows downhill. So the return is spontaneous, driven by natural law, reinforcing that idea of the world submitting of their own accord to the leader who embodies humility, the lowest position.
it's submission through attraction to the lowest point, not conquest from the highest.
Exactly. Then Suche adds a warmer, more emotional layer. He sees it as an ancestral reunion.
How so?
The Tao is the ultimate origin, the ancestor. All the myriad things, the streams, are its descendants. Their inevitable return to the sea isn't just physics, it's like a family coming home, drawn by the deep call of their shared roots, a sense of belonging.
A more personal, heartfelt return. And Zhang Jing connects it to later philosophical ideas.
Yeah, he draws a parallel to the Neo-Confucian concept of Li Yifan Shu. Principle is one, but its manifestations are many.
The sea is the one universal principle.
And the infinite streams and rivulets are its diverse, specific manifestations in the world. It's a neat way to bridge the Taoist metaphor with later attempts to reconcile the underlying unity, the one, and the observable diversity, the many, of reality.
This chapter is just packed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's step back now and look at the bigger picture. This core tension, Tao versus name, the uncarved versus the cut, potential versus definition. This is really the crux of the huge, centuries-long debate between Taoism and Confucianism, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's ground zero for their fundamental disagreement. Interestingly, they actually share the same ultimate goal:
Which is?
effortless governance,
Mm-hmm.
peace, harmony, stability. Confucius famously said that a ruler governing by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place and all the other stars naturally bow to it.
That sounds very similar to Lao Tzu's myriad creatures will submit of their own accord. The feeling of effortless order is the same.
Exactly. They both want a society that runs smoothly, naturally, without constant struggle, but they propose radically different methods to get there.
And the difference boils down to their attitude towards names.
Precisely. Confucianism treasures names. The whole foundation of Confucian ethics and politics is the rectification of names. Zhengming. Ruler must act like a ruler, minister like a minister, father like a father, son like a son.
Names define roles, responsibilities, proper conduct. They create the essential structure for an ordered society. Without clear names, Confucius believed you get chaos.
Correct. Names are the pillars of the Confucian social order. But Taoism, as we've seen throughout this chapter, is deeply skeptical of names.
Lao Tzu sees them as rigid, artificial categories that carve up and obscure the living reality of the Tao. They create divisions, foster competition.
And lead to that fight over the tip of an awl. So for Lao Tzu, the crucial wisdom isn't just having names, but knowing when to stop naming. Names must always be subordinate to the underlying Tao, the fundamental principle. They are tools, potentially dangerous ones, not the ultimate reality.
Can we see this clash play out in historical or literary examples? Maybe a case where clinging too tightly to a name led to disaster.
Shakespeare's King Lear is a perfect, albeit Western, illustration of the Confucian approach gone wrong, or perhaps the Taoist warning ignored.
How so?
Lear establishes a very specific name, a rule for succession. Power goes to the daughter who performs the best public declaration of love, essentially flattery.
He makes the name, the public statement, the absolute criterion, ignoring the underlying reality of affection.
Exactly. He rigidly adheres to this artificial rule, this name, and because Cordelia offers genuine, simple love rather than empty flattery, she fails the test of the name. By prioritizing the name over the Tao, the axis truth of her devotion, Lear destroys his family, his kingdom, and himself. The name suffocated the reality.
A powerful negative example. What about a positive one where knowing when to stop following a name or rule actually worked?
The period of the 5 good emperors in Rome is often cited in this context. We talked about Rome's complexity earlier.
Right. And the established name, the rule for imperial succession, was generally hereditary. Son follows father, or at least within the family line.
Yes, that was the expected pattern, the name. But these emperors, starting with Nerva, seem to practice Lao Tzu's Zizig, knowing when to stop. They recognize that the stability and well-being of the entire empire, the greater Tao in this context, was far more important than sticking rigidly to the name of blood succession.
So Nerva didn't choose a relative.
No. He famously stopped following the hereditary principle and instead adopted Trajan, a proven and capable general, as his heir based purely on merit. He prioritized the empire's health over the established name.
And this practice of choosing successors based on competence rather than blood continued for several generations.
Right through Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius. By stopping the expected rule, the name, for the sake of the greater good, the Tao, they ushered in almost a century of relative peace and prosperity at the height of the Pax Romana, ironically achieved by breaking its own implicit rule.
That really highlights the pragmatic wisdom behind knowing when to stop. It also reinforces the idea that Lao Tzu wasn't just anti-government or anti-structure.
Absolutely not. He's often misunderstood as an anarchist, someone wanting to tear everything down, but Chapter 32 suggests something far more sophisticated. He's like a master systems architect.
Designing a system capable of self-correction.
Exactly. He understands you need structure, you need names to start, but he builds in this crucial feedback loop, this braking mechanism to prevent the structure from becoming rigid and self-destructive. He's thinking about dynamic stability, not just static order.
There's that fascinating dialectic you mentioned between the Tao, the fundamental principle, maybe like a constitution, and the law, the specific statutes, the names.
Yes, Lao Tzu seems to say, making laws is the necessary means to an end. But the ultimate goal is actually to stop the laws, or rather, for the laws to become unnecessary.
How does that work? The scaffolding analogy helps here, doesn't it?
Perfectly. Think of laws, institutions, names as the scaffolding you need to build a magnificent palace. The palace representing a truly harmonious society aligned with the Tao.
The scaffolding is essential during construction. You can't build without it.
Right. But once the palace is finished, stable and beautiful, what do you do with the scaffolding?
You have to take it down. If you leave it up, it obscures the beauty of the palace and gets in the way of people actually living in it.
Precisely. The laws, names, are the scaffolding. They are necessary initially to guide behavior and shape society towards the Tao. But the ultimate goal is for the people to internalize the principles, to live harmoniously without needing the external scaffolding of constant rules and enforcement.
So if we were to sketch out Lao Tzu's blueprint for the ideal state based on this chapter.
We could see it as a three-step process.
Yeah.
Step 1, uphold the block. Establish the fundamental principle, the simple, natural way, the Tao, as the ultimate inviolable foundation. Like a constitution based on natural law and minimalism.
Step 2, institute names. Create specific, simple laws and roles as needed.
Right.
But their primary purpose should be education and guidance towards the Tao, not just punishment or creating rigid hierarchies. Keep it minimal, functional.
And the crucial step 3, know when to stop. This is the system's built-in mechanism for self-transcendence. As the populace internalizes the principles, as the Tao becomes their own inner moral compass.
The external laws, the scaffolding, can gradually retire with their mission accomplished.
Exactly. Society transitions from relying on external rule of law to operating through internal spontaneous rule of virtue. The scaffolding comes down.
So Lao Tzu's famous non-action, Wu Wei, isn't passivity at all. It's incredibly advanced governance. It's designing a system that aims for its own obsolescence, where the highest achievement is when people are living well and are barely aware they are being governed.
They just live in natural harmony. It's a profound vision, and its relevance today, thousands of years later, is honestly quite startling.
Let's talk about that modern relevance on the macro level, politically.
Well, Chapter 32 offers a pretty potent critique of what we might call bureaucratic sclerosis or excessive government intervention, doesn't it?
It really does. The emphasis on effortless governance, submitting of their own accord, and fewer names resonates strongly with arguments for minimal government deregulation, or at least smarter, less complex regulation.
It suggests that creating a free, stable environment where spontaneous order, maybe Adam Smith's invisible hand is a related concept, can flourish, is often more effective than trying to micromanage everything with intricate rules and classifications, names. Overregulation can stifle the natural vitality.
And this principle extends beyond just human systems into our relationship with nature itself, right? Ecological ethics.
Absolutely. Upholding the block becomes a powerful environmental mandate. It demands respect for nature's intrinsic value, its uncarved state, before we impose our human names and purposes onto it.
When we label a forest merely a timber resource or a river just a hydroelectric power source,
that act of naming reveals our anthropocentric arrogance, doesn't it? We reduce a complex, living ecosystem with its own inherent value to a mere utility defined by our needs. Lao Tzu is yelling across the centuries, know when to stop! Stop the endless extraction! Stop the reductionist naming! Respect the integrity of the uncarved block.
Professor Fu Perong's example of the rhinoceros, it just Brutal, but so illustrative of this danger of names.
It really is. The rhino was perfectly adapted, safe from its natural predators. It existed as an uncarved block in its ecosystem.
Until humans gave its horn a name.
Yes, we named it precious medicine or a valuable status symbol. And for the sake of that arbitrary name, that human-created definition and desire, we drove the species towards extinction. We destroyed the actual living creature for a label.
And that connects directly to modern consumerism, doesn't it?
Terribly so. We constantly consume the Earth's resources, its uncarved vitality, and even our own finite life energy, chasing names, designer labels, status symbols, the illusion of luxury, the name of success. We sacrifice the real for the label.
Which brings the wisdom of Z, knowing when to stop, right down to the most personal level, our own lives. How do we apply this?
Professor Fu Perong talks about finding the narrative of one's life. He suggests that a lot of modern anxiety, burnout, that feeling of existential emptiness.
Comes from living a life defined by external names.
Exactly. Our scripts are written by society. Good student, successful professional, responsible parent, wealthy individual. We chase these titles, these labels bestowed by others.
And in the process, we lose touch
with the uncarved block of our own authentic self, that core of who we were, our unique potential, before the world started carving us up and sticking labels on us.
So studying Chapter 32 is like a tool for rediscovering that authentic self.
It can be. It encourages us to find the central, nameless thread of our own being. But it takes courage.
The courage to say no.
Yes. The courage to identify which external names and expectations are draining us, which are irrelevant to our core self, and to consciously stop chasing them. And instead, invest our precious, finite life energy in pursuits that genuinely resonate with our inner, uncarved nature. Learning to define our own limits, choose our own path based on internal values, not external labels.
That, Lao Tzu might say, is true strength, true clarity, true purpose, knowing when to stop the world's noise and listen to your own Tao.
Beautifully put.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Chapter 32, the core messages seem clear. External order comes not from adding more rules, but from upholding the block, respecting the fundamental simple reality.
And the essential safety valve for society and for ourselves is that crucial wisdom, knowing when to stop, the carving, the naming, the chasing.
True stability isn't forced. It arises naturally, returns to us, like those rivers finding their way home to the sea.
If you remember just 4 phrases from today, maybe hold on to these. Uphold the block, fewer names, know when to stop, endure for long.
And perhaps a final but provocative thought to leave you with. What if true strength, true governance, lies in the trust required to loosen the grip? If power steps back, will the world find its own balance?
A challenging question. And now, having explored the Tao in the world and in the state, the Daodejing takes another sharp turn.
Where does it go next?
Inward. Deeply inward. Chapter 33 shifts the focus entirely from governing the world to governing the self.
Posing that critical question, if you conquer the entire world but fail to conquer yourself, are you actually strong?
Exactly. We'll explore those famous distinctions. Knowing others is intelligent, knowing himself is enlightened, and overcoming others has force. One who overcomes himself is strong.
We'll delve into the nature of real strength, contentment, Zu's another kind of knowing, and even Lao Tzu's unique idea of longevity, dying but not forgotten.
It promises to be another fascinating exploration into self-mastery.
We hope you'll join us next time as we continue this profound deep dive into the wisdom of Lao Tzu.